I was actually a studio painter for almost 35 years. And I used sort of like an intuitive exploratory approach to generate ideas kind of on the fly. I mean, I used the process to give myself the ideas. And about 10 years ago, I started learning 3D modeling just as a side thing. I was 3D printing and I wanted to make my own models. And from there, I actually sort of accidentally fell into making virtual environments. They kind of followed along what I made with my paintings. They're kind of like allegorical scenes. And so even though the mediums are different, they're kind of similar. And, originally I made these for videos and now I make them for immersive projects. And like I said, these 3D worlds, they're real similar to my paintings. And so I feel like it's kind of a continuation of my painted worlds. I mean, I usually try to avoid any kind of premeditated or pre-planned storylines. I just jump in and try to find out what kind of, what kind of ideas arise. But one did arise from this building process. And I began to think of this shack as kind of like an abandoned business that had once been a travel agency or a real estate business for this sort of like utopian community. And real estate kind of encompasses both like a fantasy and, touch grass reality. So that fit the theme. But there used to be, before the internet, there used to, every little town everywhere, there were travel agencies. I don't think there really are, not in this particular, they were usually a standalone building that was just small, like an insurance agency. And, they'd be covered in all these exotic travel posters. And for me as a child, I mean, that was not a world I was at all familiar with. So it was as exotic, like, what even is that? But those were everywhere. And so I started to think of this as an abandoned, travel agency for a utopian community. And I thought that really resonated for me. I really like the idea of the mystery of that. So, yeah. There's actually 3 scenes in terms of the navigating. The first is just kind of a wood, a dark area with that little shack. It's really kind of almost so small you can't go in, but you do. And then it transports you to a large overscaled version of the interior. And that's where you see the travel posters. And then there's over on the side, there's a little miniature diorama of the utopian community. And so you can click on that, and then that opens up into a really different place. The feel, everything about it is quite different from the darker scenes before. So I do keep a sketchbooks, and they are really full. A lot of them are just writing. But then if I do a sketch, it's a very fast thing just to remember the idea usually, or just to think about it, in terms. And also I found that I really do want to see and feel it in space, the size, the scale, what this feels like. So sometimes, I try to block it out as a prototype, but I really, if it doesn't have textures and things on it, I can't quite get excited about it. So that's another thing. I end up doing finished builds. I wish I could prototype better with just gray boxing, but I just can't get excited about a gray box layout. So sometimes I found resinine's kind of fun to go in and just throw a bunch of things in and move them around, in terms of getting the idea of scale and everything. It's fun to kit bash in, but I use Blender. Yeah, I use Blender quite a bit. That's my main tool. I mean, I really do just want to present something that's like, what is this? That's what I want to experience when I go, I want to go, I don't know what this is or why, but this is interesting, So that's really it. I really don't try to guide, other than what I get a hunch for, that this feels like, it has some meaning. I really don't then try to suss out the meaning even for myself. I really trust just letting things stay in flux. If I get that good feeling about it, once it feels, this is doing something, and I feel like it's meaningful. Decentraland, it's really varied. Like, there's all different kinds of things you could, like, what are you interested in as a user of Decentraland? Are you interested in live entertainment, fashion, wearables? And so first, I think, decide what areas that excite you. because like I said, you can do so many different things. And then I think and then number two is what tools will you be comfortable using? I don't code, so I really appreciate when a no-code tool can do a lot, and that is true and I love that. So and then there's even, I think, a builder that's more of a drag and drop. So figure out what you're interested in, and then what tool is the best for you to build in. Those two things, really. I think the main thing about Decentraland, it's you can participate in a whole lot of different ways. You know, you can be a builder, you can be a user, and so I think it's just, like I said, it's all these different parts that kind of go together to make a really nice whole. And also just the no matter what you're doing, the atmosphere, everyone is really kind of really positive and energetic, and that's really a wonderful thing too. So I think I think that's the main thing, is just jump in and be aware that there's a whole bunch of different ways of experiencing it. You don't have to be there every day. You can join, whenever it's an interesting participation community, because it's really, you really have a lot of freedom to just participate in whatever way you want. I mean, I feel like a builder, I'm not that social, but I love that it's there, if I want to pop in. And I love that it makes me realize, just being the builder, just doing that part, you're contributing. So I really like that about it.